Ever wonder what it's like to create a distillery in Jerusalem? That's exactly what we're going to be discussing on this episode of The Jewish Drinking Show, bringing L'chaim to life. Welcome everybody to another episode of The Jewish Drinking Show. I'm your host, Rabbi Drew Kaplan. I'm very excited to welcome the first ever other Kaplan onto the show, Bennett Kaplan. Welcome, Bennett.
Nice to be here, Drew Kaplan.
Absolutely. This is the first dual, double Kaplan episode ever. So this is an absolute first.
So we're done. We've excited we've excited everybody on this episode, and that's it. We're done, right?
That's
two Kaplans. Can you imagine?
Right.
How unlikely is that? That's like two Goldbergs.
That's right. Right. So we're here at Thinker's Distillery, which is Jerusalem's first ever distillery. Is that a correct assertion?
First and only.
First and only historical distillery ever in Jerusalem. When did it start? When did you open your doors here?
We got all of our licensing, I guess, is probably the way you would think about it, because the doors are open before the license, because you can't get licensed without a facility. Yeah. We got our licensing on Purim Day 2020.
We're celebrating.
Yeah.
Interesting timing, though.
Yeah. We were all sitting around the Suda and like just watching, country after country close. Yeah. And it was about a week and a half before Israel went into its first lockdown.
Oof. Okay. Okay. So really, you've been operating as an operating distillery through the pandemic.
Yeah. Actually, the pandemic helped us, helped me anyway, improve some of my recipes.
Oh yeah.
Because what happened is that it's like so silly. You look back at it now, and it's like, what were they doing to us? We were lucky. I was pronounced a person of value in the society. So they gave me a piece of paper that allowed me to drive and show it to all the roadblocks. So I come to the distillery and work. I mean, it was really kind of funny. Right. You look back at it now and it's like, wow, I was really dumb. Yeah. But anyway.
You were an essential worker, producing spirits.
Something that was essential for the society to continue functioning during, that nonsense. But anyway, so what I did is, because we finally got all of our licenses, I was able to fire up the still, because before that we were only able to do it on a piece by piece basis with the fire department here and everything when we did it. So now I had complete authorization to do everything all up by myself. So I would lock myself in here for like 12 hours a day. Huh. And that big boy does a lot better than the kind of like the 20-liter kitchen still that I had been using until then. And I discovered a lot of things that I could do even better. What ended up happening is during when everybody was at home, kind of like reading the newspapers or whatever they were doing, I was here perfecting my recipes in a way that I couldn't do. Uh-huh. And probably had I not had that year, 18 months, I probably would not have known that I could make stuff as good as I could.
That's great.
So
it was a blessing.
There was a silver lining to that cloud.
So when did the whole process get going before Purim 2020?
About a year and a half.
Okay.
Actually maybe 2 years. Uh-huh. February 2018. So about 2 years. Yeah. Before we got fully licensed. It's setting up a business like this is a big job. I mean, it's not something that you do on paper and a week later it's done. Yeah. First of all, we needed to design the bottles, because I wanted to. I mean, our goal. Let's start with the vision. Sure. Our goal is to be one of the major international distilleries. We're not a craft distiller. Okay. We're not doing artistic sort of products. We're trying to do mainstream products at the highest end. Think Porsche or Mercedes. We're trying to roll out a very large production line at the highest possible end of what we can do. A craft distiller might consider himself kind of like more of a Ferrari or something, more of a bespoke. Sort of, an exciting sort of, different recipe. We're really looking at the top level of what the ordinary person, what the ordinary market, would go for. And the most important thing is we won't put anything in a bottle ever, and we won't let anybody taste anything unless we think, including you. And
that's right.
You went through that. I'm sorry, but that's just the way I roll.
It's part of the experience.
Well, it's not part of the experience. I'm not interested in having people critique things unless I'm ready for it to be critiqued. Mm-hmm. I know what it's supposed to taste like.
Yeah.
I'm a super taster. I've got all those ridiculously excess taste buds. So like I know what I'm looking for, and I know how to do that. So there's no point in my having people look at me and say, "Oh, needs this and needs that." It's better. Tell me what you thought. You critique the bourbon when you tasted it.
But I live across the river from Kentucky, so
you're softening it. I don't want anything softened. I always tell people I want to leave every meeting I'm in wrong.
Okay.
Because if I'm right, I learn nothing.
That's fair.
And the only way you can move forward is to learn.
Okay. That was, by the way, the only criticism, because the 2 gins and the vodka you offer are phenomenal. I love their mouthfeel. And they were really fun. And the pink one, what was the pink one? You have a dry lemon
Israeli
gin?
Sunset.
Yeah, which has pinkish stuff in it. I forget. I forget what it has. And what does it have in it?
It has rose petals and strawberries are the 2 botanicals that you're trying to identify.
There we go.
When you say pinkish.
Right, which is a great Valentine's.
And other botanicals, but okay.
It's a great Valentine's or even Tu B'Av gifts, right?
Well, actually,
year round, of course. But
I mean, actually, it's funny. I mean, when we came out with it, I thought of it as being kind of like a small production item that wouldn't gain a lot of traction, but would be out there for Tu B'Av and Valentine's Day and romantic events and everything like that. Well, it turns out that people are far more romantic than you expected. And it sells as much as the other gin.
Really?
Yes.
At the same time, it really is
a Jerusalem dry gin.
It is something that is different. There are plenty of dry gins out there, but the pink one is really cool. At the same time, it is a very smooth and rounded mouthfeel that your dry gin.
Well, I mean, we didn't really open any kind of special new lane in the gin highway when we came out with that gin. You would think that, it's unusual to have something like that, but Hendrick's is not far different. Hendrick's uses cucumbers and rose petals, and we use strawberries and rose petals. So Hendrick's is less romantic and is less easy for people who aren't interested in gin to get it down.
Yeah.
But Hendrick's is still a very major supplier of gin to the world.
Yeah. They're certainly different than most gins out there, for sure. And then you also have this vodka, which is used wheat from France, correct? Which also provides a soft mouthfeel going on.
No, the wheat from France.
Oh, it's not as soft as the gin.
The wheat from France is not going to affect the mouthfeel. It's going to affect the flavor. Flavor.
Now I'm like trying to remember from last week, but yes.
Flavor is a combination of taste and smell. That those 2 combined create flavor, and it's got just a beautiful aroma. Yeah, it's kind of like bready aroma that is like heavenly. It's like walking by just the best bakery you ever walked by, and the exhaust is kind of wafting out at you, and you get that when you smell the vodka. And then of course it has the taste. Yeah, which it's a very sweet but balanced, not a sugary taste. Most vodkas that are sweet have this kind of sugary taste. It's not sugary. Yeah. It's sweet in a bready way.
And it's strange because most vodkas, people try to get rid of any potential flavor, throw them in their freezers, whatever. But this one is really drinkable neat on its own.
Well, I mean, and that was our goal. In fact, we say it's the vodka that you don't want to chill. Yeah. And the reason people are chilling the vodka, by the way, is just to make it smoother, because it's got what you're looking for. Yeah. In everything that you put in your mouth that's a beverage is balance.
Okay.
What's balance?
It depends. I mean, usually, the automatic thing that comes to my mind is balancing sweet versus bitter. Bitters can balance out sweetness. Certainly with beers, cocktails, you're always looking for balance in those.
So I'm going to try to give you a working definition of balance. And
I was trying to think about spirits. How do you balance spirits?
Maybe you'll use it, maybe you won't. But here we go. You ready? Yeah. Balance means that there's nothing too far off this way or that way, to the left or to the right. Okay. That's pulling the drink in a different direction. Everything lies in a central point, and all of the flavors that are in that central point are given an opportunity to take turns to tickle your mouth and your sensations, so that you basically get something that you can identify as having at least 3 different places where it's got flavor. And usually you're shooting for 5. Now, balance is the goal in everything. You know, the English call it Moorishness. Makes you want to have more.
Oh, okay. Just never heard that phrase before, Moorishness.
The English have that expression. And what you're looking for in a balanced beverage is very, very difficult to get in a vodka. The reason it's so difficult to get is because the various alcohols that are produced when the vodka is being made, many of them, which we call congeners, many of them have really, really off flavors. So probably the one that is the easiest to explain is acetone.
Okay.
Acetone is used commercially as nail polish remover. And it has a very, very bad aroma and an even worse taste.
Yeah.
If you've ever tasted acetone, you will never forget how terrible it is. So even small trace amounts of acetone will unbalance a vodka. So our goal was to get a balanced vodka that didn't use any additives to create the balance. Most other vodkas use trace amounts of sugar and citric acid, which is permitted by law. You don't have to put it on the bottle. And that's the way they get to the balance. What they do is they try to mask over, the imbalanced chemicals.
And you said up to 1%, right?
In America, in the United States, 1% of each.
Are there different elsewhere? Are there different allowances?
Nobody really checks. Nobody really has the capacity for checking. So people just do whatever they want to do, and they just say whatever it is that they want to say. And well, it's like because there is natural sugars in alcohol anyway. So and citric acid, you got to do a lot of testing for that. It's very difficult to test for flavors. Other than feeding it to people and asking them what they think. Yeah. The laboratories don't do that. They assay differently. So they don't really have the ability to check for flavors. What we did in the vodka was we really just went for pure balance. Now, the reason that I'm talking so much about the vodka is because it's we spoke about this when we met last week. It's the hardest of all of the alcohols to make at a very high level. Because you don't have any way to cover over any of the imbalances other than sugar and citric acid. And if you don't want to use sugar and citric acid, which we don't and we never will, okay, then you've got to find out a way to manipulate the chemistry, without introducing something foreign to it. Gin, whiskey, they don't have that problem because they have other flavors that are added. Whiskey especially. But people hate hearing that. But whiskey is essentially a form of flavored vodka, although it's distilled to a much lower level. Ultimately, if you distilled it higher, it would end up being vodka. And it's flavored through the barrel.
Hey there, I hope you're enjoying this episode so far featuring Bennett Kaplan. I want to give you a sneak peek into next week's episode featuring Rabbi Dr. Tzvi Sinensky.
I think, the need might have been somewhat different in the Orthodox community, but there is an overlap. And I think especially in the men's seders, right? In other words, the women's seders were more kind of ideological in terms of, as a feminist. And this is not, the men's seders are not meant to be anti-feminist. That's not how in any denomination that anyone that they've really spoken to, but rather kind of meeting either an educational needs, as we spoke about, kind of achieving competency and understanding the seder, or a social need.
I hope you enjoyed that sneak peek into next week's episode featuring Rabbi Dr. Sinensky on Kiddush clubs, and now back into this episode with Bennett Kaplan.
Once we got the vodka down, so then basically we went on to gin, because gin is essentially flavored vodka again. Sorry.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
It is. Yeah. The gin by law has to start off as vodka. Yeah. It has to begin its life as vodka, and then you can add the botanicals. Yeah. So basically our vodka really is kind of like the quantum success of Thinker's Distillery. And then from there, once you can handle that, then you can pretty much handle everything.
How did you come up with the name Thinkers?
The whole entire spirits industry until very recently was shrouded in legends. Nobody wanted to talk about what they did, and if they did, it was a secret recipe that was locked up in a vault because their great-great-great-grandfather wrote it back in the late 1800s, and they honor his recipes.
Legacy,
and they're keeping the yeast alive that that he worked so hard to make. And I don't mean this as a joke. I mean, this is, these are serious businesses. I mean, don't forget that the spirits industry and the wine industry, the whole alcohol business, is something that kids love to go into. If your father was an accountant, you rebelled and you became a lawyer or a doctor, or, something, But, it's rare that your parents owned a business that you really wanted to be a part of. But not true in the alcohol industry. They get handed down from generation to generation because the kids really want to be a part of that. They're born into it. You have wineries that are seventh generation. I mean, breweries, spirits industries. So the fact that like somebody came up with the original recipe and really, did his best to try to make that recipe as good as he possibly could, that translates nicely to the subsequent generations. And eventually they don't think, they just say, okay, this is the recipe that he had. So I'm not making fun of it. But the truth of the matter is that, most of those recipes were written in the late 1800s, because it was in the 1800s that this still came out. This still has a rectification or a column unit in the middle that allows you to distill to over to 95% and even 96 and 96 and a half if you really want to push the pedal to the metal. Can't get higher than that, unless you denature the alcohol, which makes it poisonous. So we're not going to do that today.
Right.
But anyway, it was kind of like all the big computer companies came out in the 70s, because that's when the chip technology allowed that to happen. So all the recipes, Bacardi and Johnny Walker and Jack Daniels and blah, 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 all those recipes were written in the late 1800s. And nothing was really done until probably around the year 1999 or 2000 that changed anything.
Why? What happened then?
The spirits industry basically fell asleep. And if you think about what happened, if you went to your friend's house or your parents' house, they all had the same 5 bottles of the same juice in their cabinet. They had one Seagram's, one this, one that. My mother tells me
Chivas, Crown Royal.
When she was growing up, they just called that Bronfman's. It's true. But nobody really did anything. What happened in around 1989, 2000 was the rise of the celebrity chef. And I don't want to go off on why there was a rise in a celebrity chef, but there was. It used to be there were 2 chefs that people kind of heard of. They were ladies. And all of a sudden you had people rising up and becoming important chefs, and now they're millionaires or multi-millionaires, and also Instagram. So what ended up happening is the chefs always wanted to have alcohol in the hands of the people who were who they were putting on Instagram, but they weren't going to put wine and beer in their hands because that's somebody else's product. But cocktails were legitimate. That was a legitimate expression for a celebrity chef to get involved in. So they went to the cocktail business, and what they did is they went back to the old cocktail books that had basically stopped being written at the time of Prohibition. And there's this whole library of these old, beautiful cocktail books. And listen, the guys who wrote those cocktails in the late 1800s and early 1900s, they were celebrities. Think about it. You got to go back and see the stuff that they did and the artwork that they brought to the books. Now, all of those cocktails, or most of those cocktails, were based on gin. Because vodka didn't exist in the West during the time of Prohibition. Vodka was only introduced to the West in the 40s and 50s, and pretty much only caught on in the 60s and 70s. So they were all gin recipes, and that's why you had in 2000 specifically this incredible rise in kind of like new gins, and that started what was called the Ginaissance, or the gin renaissance. So that's all new. Before that, you had Beefeaters and Gordons.
It sounds like it's coming through the culinary piece of it. So rise in food. Yep.
But I mean, but it has kind of like an add-on, factor, which is that, it doesn't cost much more to spoil yourself with an expensive bottle of vodka or an expensive bottle of gin, because what are you talking about, extra $5, $7? It's not a big, jump.
And you can stretch it out. And you can stretch it out across weeks or months.
And people feel very happy about spoiling themselves with this. So that gave people like me the license and the ability to spend more on our recipes because we knew we would get it back in the end game, from the consumer.
Yeah. I was thinking, as it contrasted against wine, you buy a nice bottle of wine, how long is it going to last?
Yeah.
Spirits, you can hold on to them for weeks or months.
Well, actually, I don't know if you know this, but the entire alcohol industry is, and it's huge. It's $1.5 trillion a year in sales. Includes everything: beer, wine, spirits, entry-level spirits, what are called value spirits. Premium, super premium. Now they've got prestige. It's like you've got this big industry: sake, cider. You go on and on and on and on and on.
Yeah.
Right. It's growing at 2.5% a year, but the only part of the industry that's actually experiencing any growth is the super premium spirits.
Really?
Wine is flat, beer is going down, entry level, what are called value spirits are going down, everything's going down. The super premium end of the spirits market continues to grow and has been growing since the year 2000, around 15% a year, 10 to 15% a year. And that's what fuels companies like Thinkers to enter the market, because it costs us a lot more to make our products than it costs, Absolute, let's say.
Yeah.
And not because we're small, but because we're using ingredients and processes that are far more costly. But the consumer's very happy to pay an extra couple dollars, to get something that's really spectacular.
Yeah.
Hey there, I hope you're enjoying this episode so far. Wanted to let you know this is not the only episode focusing on Israel. Earlier this summer, I went to Israel. That's right. And even better, I also drank in Israel and found out what's going on. So I sat down with people to talk about beer, wine, and whiskey. What's going on in Israel these days? It's all part of a Toast to Israel at 75 series we've got going on. These 6 episodes are all available. You can find them at different places, but you can also check them out, jewishdrinking.com/IsraelToast75. I hope you're checking them out. L'chaim, now back into the episode.
Speaking of processes, sucking the water out of the air, what's the story behind that? I'm not a STEM person, but that's the way I'm talking about it.
In a bottle of vodka, vodka, at least as we know it in Western countries, and I'm including Israel and Western countries for that purpose, is 40% alcohol. Okay, in other countries it could be higher or lower. Okay, that means it's 60% water, because that's what's not the alcohol. Think about it.
Could it be sugars? Could it be unfermented sugars? No.
No, what's not
really
alcohol is water.
Wow. Okay.
Now the question is, what kind of water are you going to put in there? Most of the distilleries, if not all of the other distilleries, make the mistake of putting water in there that does not complement the alcohol. When you drink water, it has 2 effects on you. One is the taste. Okay.
Yeah.
It could be flavor, because there could be an aroma in there as well.
Yeah.
And the second is the mouthfeel. The mouthfeel is actually more important. On a hot summer day, if you drink something with a round mouthfeel, no matter how thirsty you are, you'll spit it out, because it'll just disturb you so much. You'll feel like this is not helping me. You want something with a very sharp mouthfeel, preferably soda water. Studies have shown that soda water, what we call seltzer when I was growing up, is 60% more thirst quenching than cold mineral water. Why? Because it's attacking all of the saliva and everything else that's inside your mouth that's making you so uncomfortable.
Wow. When
When you say I'm thirsty, it's not your brain telling you your body needs water. It's not your brain telling you you're dehydrated.
Okay.
It's your mouth telling you, I can't talk anymore. It's so sticky in there.
Yeah.
Get something in there that's going to refresh it, right?
Yeah.
So soda water, seltzer is going to be the first thing that you're going to want. The second thing you're going to want is a very, very, very cold, hard mineral water. So it's going to be sharp and it's going to eat away inside of it, right?
Yeah.
What's harder and sharper than soda water? Pure alcohol. So when
There's a thirst quenching aspect to alcohol?
No, it's not the thirst quenching. It's so hard. That's why most people don't like it when they first taste it, because it attacks the inside of your mouth. So now what do you want to balance your alcohol? You want a round, tasting water.
Okay.
Something
goes back to balance?
Yeah. So everybody's throwing in hard mineral water that they're getting from who knows. It depends on which legend you decide that you want to believe that particular minute.
It's funny because I'm coming from near Kentucky, and they probably just get whatever water is coursing through their area.
And they brag that they're using limestone water,
which they're probably doing reverse osmosis.
Very hard. Very, very hard.
Yeah.
So
there's a lot of limestone here in Jerusalem, right?
Well, we manufacture our water from air because that gives us a very round water. It gives us an extremely round water. And
you suck it out of the air?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, it's a technology that basically takes the humidity out of the air and converts it into water. And the reason we do it is because it gives us that incredible round water. Now, when you tasted our vodka, the first thing in our gins, the first thing you said to me is, "Wow, the mouthfeel is so round."
Yeah.
Hey there, I wanted to break in. I hope you're enjoying the episode so far. Actually, I hope you're enjoying all of the episodes, or at the very least, most of them. And if you haven't, and if this is your first episode, go check more of them out. But if you have been enjoying them, and if you enjoy the other resources that are shared at jewishdrinking.com, I hope you think about the opportunity of supporting the work that we do here and continue to do. Please feel free to visit jewishdrinking.com/donate, and you can help support the work and continue our mission and our vision of bringing l'chaims to life. Thank you so much, and now back into the show.
All right, vodka in hand. I don't have to rely on my memory anymore.
By the way, the first sip you have to ignore. You know that, right?
Yep.
Because that first sip just took all the mucus and other things, and pollution out of your mouth.
So I didn't know why.
Yeah, that's why you're doing it, just to. And you're also getting your mouth used to the fact that it's doing something that's very unnatural for mouth to do. Drinking 40% alcohol at room temperature.
Okay.
Most people will water it down with ice or tonic water.
What I accidentally discovered one time, I kept my bourbon bottles above oven one Friday night. Have you ever had warm spirits?
It sounds like a song.
Okay.
The beginning.
Give it a shot.
This is the first line of like a song from the 60s, right?
Oh, really? Wow.
Have you
really
ever had
give
warm spirits?
Yeah. No, but give it a shot. Bourbons, whatever it is,
Really?
Warm it up. Or if anybody gives you, those rocks that you can chill, you can also heat up, right?
Yeah.
Try that. Absolutely. It's
Really?
Because it opens more bouquet. It opens up. It's also
It should.
even just the mouthfeel. It's not as constricted. It's more open. It's a new experience.
Although I find
Warm
bourbon tastes best with one ice cube.
Okay.
And people argue with me about that, but
All alcohol is however people like it.
okay, go ahead. Take the second sip. Round mouthfeel.
I mean,
Still not, huh?
yeah, not as much as those gins.
Okay.
It's a nice spicing towards the end. More of the pepperiness, more on the back end into the finish.
Okay.
Yeah.
I accept that. that vodka has never not come in first in blind tastings.
Wow. So I really like that little pepperiness at the end. Not chili pepper, but yeah. I'm also thinking about you mentioned the bready aspects on the late palate. It's lovely into the finish, yeah. Pepperiness picks up the finish.
Ladies and gentlemen, Drew has got something going on in his bloodstream that brings out pepper. Why? We'll have to figure this one out in another episode.
White
of this
pepper,
podcast.
black pepper, whatever. The white peppery black pepper.
Nice.
How do you describe this? Back end, the palate into the finish. The spicy. How else do you describe the spiciness?
Come on, that's like the smoothest, roundest vodka on planet Earth. It goes down like butter.
Yes, I'm saying just what the finish is. What is the spice on the finish? By the way, now that I had some of this, I get the butteriness too, but
I'm not getting it.
the spice?
Yeah.
That's right.
I have one guy that I invite for taste testings.
Yeah.
Who consistently says the opposite from one tasting to the same
exact same product.
Exact
Really?
same product. It's like something revolves in his taste, and he's very honest. It's like a really serious, honest guy.
Yeah.
And then I'll show him the notes, and I go, "Oh, there's different vodka." I'll say, "No, same bottle."
You have, we've talked about your products. So you have the bourbon, you have the 2 gins, you have this vodka. How did you start creating the products? You didn't release all 4 of them in 2020, right?
No.
What's the trajectory? What's the timeline? And how looking towards the future, what types of future products are you looking to put out?
We are going to have one more gin, which is going to be a more floral gin. We call it Desert Bloom. Again, our names of our gins are always reflective of something in Israel. We have Jerusalem Dry, Israeli Sunset, desert bloom, the legend of, that we caused the desert to bloom. But the real reason, the desert bloom fits in, the bottle is purple, which is the color of a desert bloom, and it has this very big floral, kind of mouth. We're making an overproof vodka, 52% vodka, which is made with a different grain that actually, it's like, I've had people tell me it's as good as whiskey. It's very unusual. It's very hard to make, but it's really delicious.
Is it rye?
No. It's made with it's also made with wheat, but not wheat from France. The wheat from France is too sweet. I needed a much duller wheat because when you overproof something, it automatically gets sweeter. So I needed something that was duller in order to create a much better platform for for kind of like heightening the sweetness, but also to give it some other kinds of flavors. And those other kinds of flavors turn out to be very whiskey-ish flavors.
Oh wow.
It
could be like an entry level. It could be a gateway for whiskey drinkers to try vodka.
Well, I've actually had whiskey drinkers tell me that they're going to drink that when it comes out instead, because in fact they will get less of a hangover. Wow. So the hangover is largely caused by all the congeners that are in the drinks. So say most people, although there's no proven science on what causes a hangover. We're working now on a rum agricole.
Oh, neat.
Which is kind of like a grassy, more spritey sort of rum, the clear. I don't ever want to barrel age any clear beverage. We won't.
Not gins.
I'll never barrel age a gin. I'll never barrel age a rum. I won't barrel age tequila. We're eventually going to make.
You gonna play with agave?
Yeah.
Ooh, okay.
That'll be my biggest challenge because the preparation of the agave is just really a big job. They have to be roasted properly and kind of like cooked.
Yeah.
But I've got a friend of mine who believes that he knows how to do it well, and I actually believe him.
Okay. Yeah. And there's probably good growing conditions for agave here in Israel, right?
Well, actually, yes. In fact, somebody's planted like 100 dunam of agave.
Wonderful.
And they're actually coming here on Wednesday to discuss.
Amazing.
Working with me on it.
It'd be great to see agave spirits being produced in Israel.
No reason why not.
Yeah.
There's absolutely no reason why not. Yeah. There's absolutely no reason why not.
And you could have it easily on Pesach even.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so
you're one of those.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, that's one of the great advantages of coming to Israel and having spirits and liqueurs. There's so many more available in this market that are kosher on Pesach that are hard to find outside of the borders of Israel.
It is a huge argument among winemakers whether a kosher wine master, whatever they call them, master winemaker can ever make a wine as good as one who's not kosher. Because his hands are tied. Who knows who he is? It's like you want a sample from the entire population on planet Earth to get the best wine master, right? Mm-hmm. But if you're dealing only with religious Jews, so like your sample is now 1 million rather than 5 billion. Okay. So their argument is like, okay, it's not really going to work. The minute you try to limit yourself to making a kosher Passover product, you've gone from I can make the best of everything. I can grab ingredients from all over the world and technology from all over the world. I can do anything I want to do to, okay, now I'm limited to things that, aren't chametz.
So you wouldn't try to do that with an agave spirit?
Well, I mean, ultimately it wouldn't necessarily be chametz, but I'd now have to have a different assembly line, a different distilling line. Okay. Like I'd have to open up something entirely different. And, is it worth it so that I can have a kosher paste? It's not interesting to me.
Yeah. People will live for 8 days without. No.
I feel bad for them. My empathy's out for them. I'll write everybody a check and let them buy their own molasses-based vodka. I'm not opposed to that. Yeah. But I don't ever want my hands tied on making the best possible product I can make. Mm-hmm. I mean, imagine you're an auto manufacturer, and the one thing is you can't buy a single part from Germany.
Okay. That's tough.
That's like, all right. I'm not going to really succeed here in making the best car in the world, am I? Yeah. I mean, what percentage of Ferraris are made in Germany? Mm-hmm. And that's so like I never want to work with anything that potentially creates a limitation. And as a religious Jew, it's so easy for me in spirits. Mm-hmm. What am I touching that isn't kosher? It's all kosher.
Hey there, I wanted to break in yet again. Although I asked for support in financial ways because it does cost some money to make the hosting happen and other aspects of Jewish drinking happen. So your financial support is definitely appreciated. And don't forget, you can go to jewishdrinking.com/donate. But also, another way of supporting the show and everything that Jewish Drinking does is also to tell your friends, tell your neighbors. If you like this content, if you like this show, maybe people you know also like it. So feel free to let them know, hey, I have this interesting episode I heard, or a few episodes, or whatever it is, or even a few clips. Feel free to share with your friends. All right, thank you so much. Now back into the show.
Starting in Jerusalem, this is the first ever, and still is the first ever, only distillery here in Jerusalem. There are not many distilleries in the first place in Israel. The first one was just created within the last decade.
Sure.
So there's probably not a lot of, I'm thinking even legislative or other, trying to fit in with various governmental regulations. But were there different or additional hoops you had to leap through in setting this up right here in Jerusalem?
Yes, my brother-in-law helped me design the distillery, and he's really, I don't want to call him a fanatic because that's not a pleasant thing, but he's very rigid in the way that he designs things. He's trained in the Technion. He's an engineer, designs factories. He's designed Snuva factories and and Osem factories. He's a major player in the field.
Oh wow!
And one of the things that he said to me when he signed on is, "I'll do anything you want, but I want you to bring to Israel the latest technologies that are out in the world that are designed to make your distillery safe." Because remember, he doesn't know anything about the process. I had explained to him what the process was. He just wanted it to be safe. So this is actually the first explosion-proof, still room in Israel, and the only one.
Huh.
The room is entirely explosion-proof. There's no electricity that is used that isn't explosion-proof. All the whole still is run on tuning forks rather than electricity to create the cuts, in all the various congeners.
Wow.
We have special vents that run through it that circulate the air. I remember it was like 6,000 times an hour. When we're working, everything. It is basically a cutting edge. Take everything from Germany, and when the fire department came in here, they were like, "Well, we just learned a lot." Because they had no exposure to this before.
Right.
And alcohol vapors are quite explosive. People don't realize how explosive they are.
Yeah.
And worse, ethanol burns clear, so you don't even know you got a fire.
Oh wow!
It doesn't. Ethanol flame has no color. So
Wow.
if you've got a fire and explosion, you feel it before you see it.
Wow, that sounds scary.
Yeah, so we really did this in a very, very, very high level. We weren't thinking about cost. That wasn't our objective. We knew that if we bought everything right and we did everything right, we would be able to produce a product that people would say, "This is really spectacular." And so we weren't like thinking, "Oh, this is going to be expensive. That's going to be expensive." So we knew at the end of the day, whatever it cost, we would get that back in spades, as they say, as a result of consumer appreciation for what we've done.
That's great.
So getting the air from getting our water, from the Jerusalem air, and and everything that we've done, is really designed to make the best possible product, and we weren't looking at budgets.
That's incredible. How far and wide is your distribution? Obviously, I suspect all four of your products and however future products are available in Israel. Outside of Israel, how widely available are they? Whether in Europe, America, or elsewhere?
So we started distributing in Israel only last September.
Oh, September 2022.
Yeah, I made the decision to wait until COVID was over before I would go into distribution.
Wow.
Because it's very difficult to tell a story to a consumer who walks into a liquor store, with a mask on his face, and all he wants to do is get out before somebody gets in or his kid's sick. People were really paranoid. You don't remember, the sky was falling. Everybody was really, 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 I shouldn't say everybody. Most people were very, very, very nervous.
Yeah, wow.
So we made a decision, again, just a sensible business decision. Don't try to sell things to people who aren't in the mood to buy. Now, people wanted to buy alcohol, but they weren't looking for something new. They were buying their old, tried and true, brands, and they were having them delivered to their house for the most part.
Yeah.
And when they would make an excursion to an alcohol store or to even a grocery store, I mean, like they were on roller skates. They were just moving through the aisles and like seamlessly just trying to get out of there and hoping to avoid contact with another person.
Yeah.
It was pretty weird times. So we went into distribution here in Israel in September with one of the largest distributors who's doing a fabulous job. So we're now basically in wide distribution in Israel, 600 locations, and doing great. I mean, just fabulous. The next markets that we're going into are New York and Illinois. That will be in the New York and Illinois market in July.
Okay.
We'll hit the rest of North America of the United States in November.
Oh, November 2023.
Well, yeah, we'll be in all Total Wine stores. In November, we'll be throughout Canada next January. We'll be in the UK at the end of this year. We'll be in Morocco, believe it or not. They got a big population over there and a great distributor. At the end of this year, we'll be in strategic places in Europe, Switzerland, Ireland. In the beginning of next year, we'll be in Brazil. In the beginning of next year, we'll be in the United Arab Emirates toward the middle of next year.
That's great.
So we're expanding quickly.
Yeah.
We've never had a turn down from a distributor.
Oh, that's great.
It's wild. Well, they all look at our bottles and they go, "Wow, stuff in the bottles is anywhere near as good as the bottles themselves." We're in, and then they all do these tastings, and like we immediately get emails like, "Don't talk to anybody else."
That's good. Speaking of your bottles and design, there's a piece from Pirkei Avos on them. Not too many liquors I've come across have Pirkei Avos quotes on them. How'd you come up with that quote from Ben Zoma?
Well, so you asked me before how we came up with the thinker's name, and I never actually answered it, which is fine, and I won't answer it.
I'm glad you're answering it now.
I don't want to answer it now because
you said you're thinking, you're creating a new, you're not just relying on previous lore.
That's it. Yeah, that's right. Okay. Exactly. You figured that out.
Because you're doing mechadash, you're doing it anew, right?
So what happened is I told everybody, I was calling my company Thinkers, and one person everybody said, "That's great, I love it, it's fabulous, blah, 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 blah." Yeah. And it was originally Thinkers with an apostrophe between the R and the S, which meant, we are the thinkers, because that's what the apostrophe would do. This belongs to a thinker. Right? Possessive. Yeah. And this person said,
the thinking person's beverage.
Yeah, so that person looked at me and said, "Well, that's really arrogant."
Okay.
And I was like, "You're right." You're right. It didn't evolve that way. So I got rid of the apostrophe, and then I thought to myself, but I'm not really the thinker here. I've just basically taken what everybody else has done and figured out how to make it better. And then I thought, well, that's Pirkei Avos. Bezu Chacham, Alomen Mikol Adam, who's wise, a person who learns from everyone. I was like, that's perfect. And then I sent back the new label without the apostrophe and the Hebrew on it to the person who said that's arrogant. They said, "Well, that's beautiful now." And I said, "Okay, good."
It would have been great to say this is the thinking person's drink,
That's fine. But it was wrong.
Okay.
And they were right.
Yeah.
Like I said, I prefer being wrong.
That's fair. That's fair. Before we close, is there anything you'd like to promote?
This is something that you and I discussed on a philosophical level when we met last week. Alcohol has more than just a physical danger. There's also a deep spiritual danger in alcohol. And the spiritual danger in alcohol is that it can take you to places that you wouldn't otherwise necessarily want to go. It can make you angry. And what I've learned and what I believe to be true is that alcohol takes you where you want it to take you before you've had your first drink, which is why the rabbis felt so comfortable prescribing alcohol on Shabbos, Pesach, etc., because they already told you where it's supposed to take you. So what I always tell people is, think about good things. Think about things you could do to make the world better, or your family, or your marriage, or your kids, or anything. before you have that first drink, so that you can protect your spirit by making sure the alcohol takes you in a good place rather than a bad place.
All right, cool. All right, well, thank you for that. And Bennett, thank you so much. It's been enlightening, fascinating, tasty, and it was exciting. All right, to Jerusalem.
It's been a pleasure, Kaplan.
Absolutely. Our first ever double Kaplan episode. Chaim. There we go. Awesome.